Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be making the fixture for the Charger rear lower control arms. So I've needed to make these because after making the subframe and making all the suspension components, the coilover fell in a weird spot. So if I put it where it's supposed to be, these are the control arms from the parts Durango, and if I put the coilover where it's supposed to be on these, which this control arm was never made to be on a Charger, the coil sits like this. Sits at probably like a 15-degree angle, which that's not a good thing. So it would be okay if it was just a strut by itself because it has some play, it's a rubber bushing. But since I made it into a true coilover, that spring would be putting weird pressure on the perch because it'd be leaned to one side. So then as the suspension traveled up and down, it may result in unibody issues. I want it to be perfectly flat like it's supposed to be. So the whole reason behind stripping the parts Durango was to get the control arms off, since the Trackhawk lower control arms are currently on the Charger. So how I have it set up right now is I have the Lexus lower mounts and they're just bolted to the front. So it pretty much just needed to come over that much. So I'll just make the main part of the lower control arm, then I'll stick it on there, and then I'll figure out exactly where that bracket needs to be, tack it in, have Hayden weld everything together, powder coat them, get them on the car. So I've already made a few parts for the lower control arms ahead of time. I made these mounts right here. These are these right here. So let me flip this over. So I've already made the ends right here. Then I reached out to QA1. I already have QA1 Heim joints as all my adjustable arms, but they sent me all the adjustable Heim joints that I need, or all the Heim joints I need to make the adjustable arms, as well as the ends. So I decided to make the lower control arms out of 1.5 inches. Most lower control arms are made out of 1.25 inches, but I don't have a die for 1.25 inches for my tubing bender, and I can't get them because the tubing bender I have, they no longer make. The company still exists, but they no longer make tubing benders, I guess. A company bought them and they started off making a bunch of different new stuff, which doesn't include tubing benders. Not exactly sure why. Can't get the dies for it. So I need to eventually get a new tubing bender with dies all the way up, probably from, like inch to like 2.25 or something like that. But really happy that, QA1 is helping the build. I'll put a link in the description for these Heims. These are really nice units right here. I mean, I have QA1 Heims are for the adjustable arms, which the toe, the camber, etc. And these are like the top of the line ones. And you could tell the difference from the ones that I got. I think these ones have the liner inside of them, and they're so smooth. So really easy to make adjustable arms. But what I'm gonna do is go over, get some metal so I'm gonna make a big H, and then I'm gonna make both lower control arm fixtures off of that H. So it's pretty simple. I just need, you know, the two ends, and then I just need the upper, and then I just need to tie in this piece for, well, it'll be over here, which will be nice because I'll hit that end, or that part of the H for the coilover. And then I have one more right here that I need to use for the sway bar. So let's get all that stuff made. Picked up the metal to make the fixture. I ended up having to cut this in half. They only sold it in 24-foot sections. So this is a 12-foot section. I have the lower control arms. Finished up at the machine shop making the rear lower control arm fixture, and surprisingly enough, this was very simple to make. So I made it in a sort of H pattern, which was very convenient because then I could get both lower control arms onto one fixture instead of making two fixtures. This is really nice because then when I store it, then I don't have to worry about storing two. I just have one fixture. So what I ended up doing was I tagged in these locations with some flat bar stock, just measured from the base, drilled a hole, very simple, made 8 of those. And then I also, I'm not sure if it's from the Trackhawk or the Grand Cherokee SRT, I had some of the ball joints that were ripped out, which was nice that I saved them because then these are a tapered fit, bolted them to the control arm, welded them to this fixture. We have a perfect location for that. So I've already made those pieces, which are right here. So these right here replace these right here. So they go like this, which is really nice. Then I'm gonna have the QA1 Heims. So this is the X1 series, top of the line series. And these are just gonna replace this back here on both sides. And it's just gonna go, pretty much I'm just gonna bend it so it curves into here. Then I could tag in this sway bar link mount, and then I could tag in the coilover mount, which will be really nice. So surprisingly enough, very simple to make these lower control arm fixtures, and I don't think the lower control arms are going to be too difficult. So QA1 is actually working with me. So if you guys are interested, I'll put the link in the description for the Heims. These Heims, they're awesome. Then the jam nuts, and then these go into, so these are threaded, but these go into your tube stock. So I'm using 1.5 inches, which is right here. And they're really nice because they just slip fit in them. They're already kind of chamfered on the edge. Look at this, already chamfered on the edge. You just put a nice TIG weld around there and she'll look perfect. So let's start working on these, get these all busted out. I don't think it'll be that difficult. And then after I get them made, or after I get them all tacked together, I could take them home, test fit them on the charger, and then I need to figure out the coilover mounting location, and then I need to send that file off to Send Cut Send. So then I can weld that or tack that on, and then Hayden can weld all these up. Both of the rear lower control arms are now fabricated. I threw one of the factory lower control arms in just to compare it. As you can see, there is no more spring perch mount, which I didn't need anymore since I have coilovers in the rear instead of having the spring and the separate shock. But when I make the coilover mount, I'm going to tie it into the sway bar link mount. So we'll have all that consolidated and it's going to be somewhere around there. So what I'm going to do is pull both of the lower control arms out of the fixture, and well, this one, and I already have the other one out, take them, throw them on the charger, figure out where the coilover is going to land. The whole reason I did this was because the coilover landed in a different spot, and it was more, you know, it was more around here. So that's why that bar is right there. So we'll pick that up. It'll be really nice, and I'll have everything tied in, which this fixture was very simple to make. So usually adjustable lower control arms, so when I bought the adjustable lower control arms on my S13 back in like 2006, it was like the first set, the battle version ever made. And I think I paid like $1,600 for the 2 rear lower control arms that were adjustable. I think I have probably in both the lower control arms less than $500, probably less than that. So, you know, even including the fixture, like $500 would be the max. So, and it's really nice to have, you know, I have all of this is chromoly. I did start making it out of normal DOM, but then QA1 was working with me, or QA1 is working with me. They sent me those X1 series Heims, and I'm pretty sure those are chromoly. So then I was like, well, I should just order 4130 chromoly just to make the lower control arms out of. So it's all chromoly. And, you know, I had already started making it out of DOM. So I was like, well, I want it all out of one material instead of mixing and matching, because then I didn't have enough of the DOM to finish the control arms. So I remade them all out of chromoly, which was really nice, because then I got everything fitted nice. I kind of made a few adjustments to that bar there. This bar right here, actually, it was really simple. It's just a 45-degree bend. And I couldn't believe the first, you know, I just kind of was like, well, I'm going to try this, and it worked. And then I just copied it to the other side. So one thing, when you do something like this, if you guys are going to try it, make sure to write everything down so you know mathematically and measure it, that you can reproduce it. I've seen a lot of guys fabricate and they just kind of wing it. They don't measure anything, and then they're trying to reproduce it to mirror the other side, and it doesn't work. So I have all my notes for this bar. I have another little piece of tape with all the writing for the measurements that I bent stuff at, and how I notched it at a certain angle, etc. Same thing with that center bar. You know, it's offset to actually fit in there and have a nice, you know, look at that nice clean fit on both sides. So I'll have Hayden TIG weld these all up once I get that last mount for the coilovers in, and we'll go from there. But let's get these out of the fixture, head home, throw them on the charger, figure out where we need those coilovers to land, and then I'll wrap this video up. I can't wait to get these permanently on the car. These, the parking brake cable, the brake lines, brake pads, and the axles is the last pieces for the rear, all the rear suspension, and it's going to be all tied in 100%. So let's get this done, so then we can finally get all that rear suspension done. And then the front subframe is very close. I just need to, you know, when I send this file off, I will send that last file off for the front subframe, and we'll have that all done. I'll also have Hayden weld that whole thing up, and we'll be really close. And then the last thing I have to do is front lower control arms and front knuckles, and then everything else is just going to bolt right in. Just test fitting the lower control arm onto the charger. I forgot to take a video of it. I just pulled it off. It's kind of a pain because the axle's on there. But the plus side is it's a lot lighter than the factory one. It's also a lot slimmer. It doesn't have that spring perch mount, and it also is Heim, and it's chromoly. So it's really, really nice. So I just need to add the coilover. As you guys remember, I put a true coilover in the rear, and as you can see, it's well, you can't see it right now, but it's in a different spot. The factory lower control arm back on, and I haven't put the coil back into the hole because I wanted to show you how far off it is. So as you can see right there is where the bolt goes through, and it's probably, I'd say, half an inch to an inch forward, and then you know, the Trackhawk one goes around this as a pickup point instead of being a bolt going through it, or a bolt still goes through it, but it's a fork instead of like an end. So yeah, I'm gonna stick that back in there, and we'll be good to go for now. And then I'll have to readjust all the suspension once I get the lower control arm back on there, because everything is going to be different. Plus, this will be longer, and I had kind of I was kind of concerned with how little threads are on the bottom of this to be at the correct ride height. Now this one will actually thread quite a bit further because it's a whole longer tube. See how much longer it is, and this one is meant to be part of a coilover. So the charger's back on the ground with the old lower control arm on. Really happy that I was able to test fit that, figure out where I need the pickup point for the coilover, but that'll be in the next order to send, cut, send. So big shout out to QA1. I'll put a link in the description for the Heim joints and all this stuff, the materials from them that I use to make those lower control arms. And it's pretty simple. If you have a bender, I know benders are expensive, but you could get a decent one from Harbor Freight for relatively cheap. For stuff like this, like chromoly and Dom, smaller diameters, it's really not going to distort that much. I do have a nicer bender, but you could possibly make these yourself. So I'm going to end the video here. If you like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, throw a thumbs up, throw a comment below. As always, see you guys next time.